Hi, kindergarten. Today we're going to continue learning about plants, and we're going to read a story called Polly the Honeybee's Flower Tour. So let's start with our vocabulary. The first word is honey. Honey is a sweet, sticky food made by bees from the nectar of flowers. So what's nectar? Well, nectar is a sweet liquid found in flowers that bees and some birds collect. So the bee is trying to get that sweet liquid called nectar. Petals are the colored outer parts of a flower. Pollen is a fine yellowish powder found in the center of flowers. So you see this yellow, there's that yellow powder all over the place. And then pollination. Pollination is when pollen from one flower, like this, lands on another flower, and then the other flower makes seeds. So see how the bee is taking powder from one flower to the next to make seeds. Look at how cute this bee is. Now remember, plants have many different parts. We talked about the roots, stems, branches, leaves, flowers, and seeds. Today, you're going to learn more about flowers, okay? All different types of flowers. Now, many animals like flowers, just like people like flowers. And you're going to get a chance to listen to a special guest, Polly the honeybee. And Polly loves flowers. See right there? That's Polly. And if you notice, this is what a real honeybee looks like, right? Polly doesn't look quite like that, but she's a honeybee too. Okay, listen carefully to learn about how Polly and her honeybee friends help flowers. Hello, my name is Polly, and I'm a honeybee. I live in a beehive in a meadow not too far from here. A meadow is a flat area of land that's usually covered with grass and flowers. Your teacher asked me to come here today to tell you more about flowers. My favorite part of plants. As you've learned, flowers contain seeds and seeds can grow into new plants. I am delighted to come and tell you about flowers because flowers are one of my favorite things in the whole world. The meadow near my beehive is full of all different kinds of flowers that come in many different colors. Earlier today, I visited a particularly delicious yellow flower. Come along and I'll show it to you. Why is Polly calling a flower delicious? I don't know. Here's the flower I was telling you about. Do you see its ring of bright yellow parts around the flower? Those are called petals. The petals look like brightly colored leaves. The petals are the part of the flower that grab my attention when I'm out buzzing around. Once I see a pretty flower, my favorite thing to do is crawl inside the petals into the center of the flower. What's it like to crawl inside a flower like this? Imagine for a minute that you're crawling under the bright yellow blankets of a very comfortable bed. Bright yellow is all around you. Now imagine that you stay under the blankets drinking the world's tastiest drink through a straw. You are so happy that you wriggle around and get covered with a yellow powder that smells great and feels good against your skin. That's what it's like for me when I visit a flower. As far as I'm concerned, the world's tastiest drink is called nectar, which is a sweet juice that plants have. Plants make nectar, and the yellow powder that I like to rub against is called pollen. I find both nectar and pollen inside flowers, and frankly, I'm not even sure which one I like better. I visit more than 50 flowers in one outing, sometimes as many as 100. I visit these flowers because we bees get our food from flowers. My job is to fly around and find nectar and pollen, which I gather up and take back to my hive. I have a special pouch inside my body that holds nectar, and there are special hairs on my back legs that form a little basket that I brush pollen into. When it's time to go back to my hive, sometimes my load of pollen and nectar weighs half as much as I do. So do you think it's easy or difficult for a bee to take nectar to its hive? Oof. When I get back to the hive, I turn nectar and pollen over to the worker bees in the hive. They mix the pollen with a little bit of nectar and feed it to the baby bees. Then they fan the rest of the nectar with their wings until most of the water is gone. Nectar with most of the water gone turns into something that both bees and people love. Nectar with most of the water removed is called honey. Here's the honey in my hive. People use honey to sweeten their food, but we bees use honey for food. We keep it in a bunch of little cubbies that we call the honeycomb. Wow, look at that. I visit flowers to get food, and that's reason enough for me. But it turns out that I'm also doing something else besides finding food for myself and other bees. I'm helping the plants reproduce or make more plants. In order to make a seed that can develop into a new plant, most plants need to mix pollen from their own plants with pollen from the other plants that are like them. For example, a corn plant needs pollen from another corn plant in order to allow it to make seeds. When pollen from one corn plant lands on another corn plant, something called pollination happens. Pollination is when pollen from one flower mixes with the pollen of another flower so the plant can make seeds. Pollination is really important because if it doesn't happen, the plant won't be able to make any seeds. And if there are no seeds, then there will be no new plants. How do plants get pollen from other plants? Well, plants can't walk around like human beings. And they can't flap their wings and fly like us bees either. Luckily, the pollen grains themselves are very small. They can be blown from one plant to another by the wind. So the wind helps pollinate plants so they can make new plants. But bees, like me, also help pollinate plants. How do my trips from one plant to another help pollinate plants? When I visit a flower and roll around inside, I pick up a lot of pollen. When I fly to the next flower, I carry some pollen from other flowers with me, and some of it rubs off on the next flower I visit. That's why I'm such an excellent pollinator of plants, and that's why they call me Polly the Pollinator. I don't like to brag, but we bees are the most important pollinators in the world. Oh, sure, the wind helps pollinate, and some other insects also carry grains of pollen from one plant to another as they feed. Butterflies do it. So do moths, beetles, and wasps. Some birds, like hummingbirds, are also good pollinators. Bats are good pollinators too, but no other creature pollinates as many flowers as bees do. I hope you liked that story, kindergarten. This week you don't have any exit tickets on Seesaw, so you just have extra time to catch up on the other exit tickets that you haven't done yet. Get ready to talk about this lovely little story with Mr. Malcolm. See you later, kindergarten.